Again, let me introduce Mr. Marwan Julandani. Mr. Marwan is from 2010 batch, a public relation alumni. He was one of the, I would say, again, extraordinary students who contributed much to public relation, and we still remember the campaigns that we delivered together back in 2014. One campaign was targeted at old people or elderly, and the second was about child safety. So just, we aimed at raising awareness about child safety, educating people, families, students about the use of smartphones and how to protect their children from the harmful stuff shared online. Currently, Mr. Marwan is working as corporate affairs specialist at Vodafone Oman. Okay. I think he joined in September 2024. Previously, Marwan worked as internal communication specialist at Omantel. Marwan is passionate about creating best-in-class internal communication function. So he's more into internal communication and employment or employee engagement, connectivity, and culture. Okay, you can find the LinkedIn profile if you're interested to know more about Marwan by clicking on the link provided on this slide. Right, so Marwan, welcome to this series of PR-related sessions. And I think if you could please share your slides.
Thank you, Sami. Thank you for your introduction, although it's a little bit exaggerated. So
not really.
Okay, so instead of bothering you, going to next slide, I will share my slides. Could you please stop sharing your slide? Mr. Sami? Okay.
Yes, Marwan.
Yeah, okay. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
And what about my voice? Is it clear?
It's clear enough.
Okay. Welcome, everyone, and good afternoon. Inshallah, I will not take too much time from your valuable time. I think it's time to study, preparing for your exams. Today, inshallah, we are diving into a critical but often overlooked aspect of PR, internal communication. While PR often focuses on external messaging, how we communicate inside an organization actually shapes the culture, trust, and success. Hopefully, by end of this session, you will see why internal communication is a game changer for employee engagement and organization reputation. So before I going through the slides, I just need to elaborate that there are three pillars which you cannot separate in the organization. They are internal communication, employee engagement, and culture. All three are connected, strongly connected, and you cannot separate them because each pillar contribute to the other one. And you will see through the slides, through the explanation, why it's very important to combine all three pillars. And before I even diving in more, I worked in, this is my third organization now. I worked in previously in two organizations, and this is my third one, Vodafone. So through the explanation, in just for confidential purposes, I will not mention the organization where the example or a story, just take the example of the story. So the power of internal communication in PR and how it drives employee engagement and shaping the culture within your organization. Our agenda today, inshallah, we will cover first, we will define the internal communication and its purposes. Then we will explore why it's so vital for organization, especially in PR. And finally, we will link it to the employee engagement and culture and the key areas where strategic communication can make or break success. So, if you planning to define the internal communication, some people think that just sending memos or emails to your staff, to your employees within the organization is internal communication. But in fact, it's much wider than this. It is a strategic management of communication within the organization. So it's just see that it starts with a strategic management. So you should, in order to make it a strategic communication, you should have a policies, you should have a strategy, how, when, where to send it, what channels are you using. So all these are connected to each other, not just sending emails or memos. And there are many types, formal and of course informal. And we will come to that. We'll break it down why we are sometimes using formal and why in some certain situations we are not allowed or not preferably to use formal channels like email. So instead that we use informal. And one important element is also it should be a two-way of communication. Previously, in industries, internal communication was just a one way. So the department just sent the announcement without getting any feedback, and that was a disaster at that time. So they came up with a two-way of communication that every voice in the company should be heard. You should listen to everyone. So that's also a key factor in internal communication. So when it comes to the purpose of internal communication, some people say that why internal communication is important to my organization. So how could you justify this? Why do we need internal communication? So the key objective is first to inform. Employees cannot contribute if they are in the dark. If you are not communicating organization strategy, organization updates, what's going on through all the year, what's the accomplishment, what the achievements people or organization overall have done. So they are in dark. So one key objective of internal communication is to inform your employees and keep them updated. Second, it's very important, it's engage. Like a PR, it's about the storytelling and dialogue. Because if you engage your staff, you will get the feedback. That's why we mentioned before the importance of two-way communication. How do you engage them? How you make them very productive? You have to engage them. You have to communicate transparency, all the details, all the updates. Then we have a line. Imagine there's a rowing team where everyone is just pulling in a different direction. That's chaos, right? The same in the organization. Everyone should know where the organization is heading. What are the yearly goals? What are the vision? What are the strategy they want to implement, they want to achieve this year? So everyone should be aligned. And just imagine that your organization is across Oman. For example, Omantel, when I worked in Omantel, it's from Musandan to Bafar. How you connect all these people together? You cannot just send an email to all of them and expect all of them reading the email or getting the information. So in order to communicate them well, we have to consider the objectives and paying attention. and how to achieve all these objectives. Motivation and recognition. Even during a meeting, a shout out to an employee can boost a moral. So just imagine that during a meeting with your management or within the team, just happens that your line manager point to some of the stuff and thanking him for because he done A, B, C. So that's a very key element for recognition, how to recognize people, how to acknowledge them, what they have done through through the year or through the quarters. And then there is a change management. For example, imagine that the organization is going through a new structure. So management will change, departments will change, you will move from this department to this department. People, nature will resist. So they cannot just accept it from the first day. How do you not polish, but how do you prepare people for the change? You have to, because internal communication is one responsible for the change management. If there is a change, if there is a merger between two companies, if there is a new structure, if there is a new strategy that will change the way of work, you should have a strategy how to implement this. Starting by giving first, for example, giving a hint to people, preparing them for what's coming, then communicating the objectives, why we are doing this, why we will do this. And in sometimes we use, for example, CEO or some VP, vice presidents, through a video just explaining why we are going through this change. So that will help you prepare your staff, your employees for the next change coming. And there is a quote I like. It says, employees who are well informed are 3x more engaged. So the more you communicate to employee, the more you engage them. So why internal communications matters? First of all, poor internal communication inside the organization costs millions as per the studies. And why is that? Because if there are no clear communications about what's going on through the organization, there will be many errors. And it happens to us in two organizations I worked in, when we didn't communicate well in one strategy. Because there is a strategy for each 4 or 3 years. And at the first time they implement the strategy, we didn't communicate it well. So there were so many mistakes we learned from, alhamdulillah. Then you will build the trust. That's why you should communicate to your staff, because you will build the trust, especially when it's transparent communication and your leadership will be credible. So people will trust the management because they are communicating everything in a transparent way. Then there is a retention. By retention, we mean that how you retain people, how you make your people stay in your organization, not leaving to another organization. Internal communication actually help doing this, help retaining people. And it's proof that they stay longer in the organization where they communicate everything about the company, not staying in the dark. And of course, if you communicate well, your employees will be your ambassador outside the organization. So in order to have your ambassadors talking about you, by this we mean your staff talking about you and telling the society, the community that my company is doing this. So they are helping your reputation, because happy employees, better external BRs. So just see the link between the external BR and the internal communication. Here comes a very important things that management should pay attention to. Some organizations just focuses on their external media, external public relations, that we want to communicate to community 1, 2, 3. But in fact, inside the organization, people are not and staff are not well informed, for example, about the new services and new achievements for the company. So this will not help you getting the community and the society knows more about your organization and what's doing to the society. There is a statistic say that companies with a strong internal communication are way better in retaining top talents. So there is something called turnover, and it's calculated in all organizations that how many turnover do I have this year? How many people left my organization to another one? They move to another companies for any reason. So one of the reasons, proved reasons, was lack of internal communication. So they left the company just because the management are not well trusted and it didn't build a good relationship with its staff. So that's why we need internal communication through the organization. Now, when it comes to internal communication and employee engagement, some people think that engagement is just about giving a free snack or tennis table in your organization, but it's not. It's about connection, how you build a connection between employees, between peers, between management and employees, and vice versa. So all these are very important, and we should paying attention because one of them is getting a feedback from your employees. Back in one of the organization, we had a very good channel. We used a private Instagram page just dedicated for employees. From time to time, quarterly or each 1 or 2 months, we post a story just to hear what people are thinking, what my staff are thinking. Do they know everything that's happened this quarter? Did they read this news? Did they hear about certain, so for example, product or achievements that one of the employees done? So it is a very successful channel we use, and it's still going on. And it helps us in recognizing and acknowledging all the achievements done by any people, any sort of achievement, whether it's a small, it's a personal, or it's in a work life, we communicate it. And we are taking feedback from people. So it was, and it is a good thing. We mentioned the recognition, and how we recognize people is also very important. For example, sometimes there is a team achieved a huge milestone through the year. So we take a video for the CEO or for their head of the department, thanking the team for what they have done and communicating this to the rest of the company, so that team will feel very valuable. And we saw that the productivity increased after the recognition. So we are paying more attention to how to recognize people. Inclusivity, because the company is scattered through Oman and it's in all wilayas. So there are some remote people or frontline workers often feel left out. They don't feel engaged. So how could we came with a strategy, how could we engage them? So we planned a strategy for a roadshow, management roadshow, where the CEO and all the vice presidents going through the wilayas, for example, for iftar gathering, or just a site visit with them, sitting with them, hear everything from them. So they felt that we are valuable now to the company because the management listened to us, and their notes are taken and their voice are heard, and all their concerns are answered at the same time. Everything they are resolving everything at the stage. So this helped us in inclusivity and covering all the stuff in Oman. So now, how to shape organization culture? So we talked about that you should communicate well internally and you should engage people. All these two elements are actually shaping your culture. Sometimes you recognize that, uh, for example, I did this, I communicate this, but the results you can see is through the culture. So you could measure the effectiveness of your communication, of your engagement through the culture. Did I change a culture? Did I change, for example, in some organizations, you could see it's just a one company, but inside that company, you see companies. So each team considered as company and separated from the other one. So how you could engage them together. For example, through a survey previously in Oman, we saw that uh, some departments doesn't know about the other department. They don't meet, they don't talk to each other. So during Ramadan, we took the chance. We created a football tournament where you are not allowed to choose your team members. We, as employee engagement department, chose the teams. We try to bring from different departments, from different teams, from different regions to play in one team. And that was really successful because they got to know each other, they got to communicate with each other, and that really helped in increasing the productivity, and people feel valuable during that time. So shaping the organization culture really helps you in value reinforcement and behavior modeling. Uh, there is one thing that we should consider. Some of the management or some of the CEOs are very great in strategy, but very poor in communicating it. So this is one element of the culture. How does your management communicate to the staff? That's why they should be a very professional in storytelling. They are open to say every, for example, not a mistake, but every gap that they had and they are trying to fix. They should have the courage to communicate transparency to the staff. Now, let's move on to the best practices for internal communication. Uh, First of all, we have a segment audience. Uh, if you are internal communication practitioner and you want to communicate, for example, something to a tech team for IT team, you should pay attention that tech team needs a different approach, a different retails, for example, than people in finance or people in HR or people in commercial team, branding team. So you have to make a segmentation to your audience. You have to know the segments that this this communication meant to, for example, to finance team, or because there is a new regulation. You cannot send illegal content to them. You should simplify the message and say it in a tone that it's readable, understandable. So segment is very important. You should consider using multi-channel. Go multi-channel. Don't just think that the email is the only way to communicate, because studies show that younger staff may prefer apps, for example, but the older ones prefer emails. So, and we have seen this many times in the organization. Uh, for example, there is a story. We were in a road coming from Musandam because we had a roadshow there, HR roadshow. I was talking to one of the management in the car. I told him, did you see this post we posted 1 week ago? He said, wait. I told him in our private Instagram. He said, no, I'm not following your private Instagram. See, because here, the importance why we need to go multi-channel. Some people are not using the app. Some people just refuse. I remember back then, one of the staff, he just had WhatsApp in his phone. It doesn't have any Instagram, any Twitter, any X, anything. So we have to consider this. And we also should measure them back because tracking open rates for emails or survey usually help you to engage people. You cannot measure the effectiveness of your campaign, of your communication without a survey. Or there should be an engagement metrics. You should measure how your staff and how your people are digesting your information. Was it clear? Everything was understandable or not? And train leaders as communicators. This is a very important because one of the organization I worked in, I was talking to the CEO of that company. He told me that, Marwan, currently I am being coached by some consultant. Just imagine that the top in the hierarchy of the company, which is the CEO, is being coached. He is getting coached by someone, by some external consultant. So this is why, and this is how much it's very important to train leaders as communicators. And don't just assume that your leaders knows how to communicate, because your role as internal com practitioner is to giving advice to your leaders how to communicate this. For example, if there is a new change coming and you know that people will refuse this change at the beginning and there's a resistance, you as a practitioner should advise your leader how you should communicate it, what the tone should be using, and what sort of channel you should use, and what the tactics, techniques that you should say. All these come from you are the one responsible. Don't just expect that your leaders know how to communicate it. And of course, encouraging peer-to-peer sharing, because people, when they are, for example, if there is a breakout area in the organization, people will talk, and not just about personal life. No, they will talk about working life, the workplace. So you should also consider this. So finally, here's just a takeaway for you, just to consider. If you are planning to become internal communication, hopefully, inshallah, you will get a job that you dream. You should focus on, and you should pay attention for internal com. It's considered as the glue of culture and engagement. So it's the backbone of engagement and culture. You cannot have a productive culture or a positive culture if your people are not engaged, and that's because of lacking of communication internally. Because poor communication, of course, it will lead to disengagement, and then to turnover. People will leave your company because you didn't communicate well. BR practitioners, as a future for BR professionals, they should advocate for internal communication. It's your secret weapon inside your organization. So a strategic internal communication will help you become a very successful practitioner, and especially internal communication practitioner. And before, there's one slide for Q&A if you want to ask any question. But before that, I just want to mention uh, I got one advice from Mr. Adib back when I was a student, the same as in your chair now. He told me, Marwan, don't keep a gap between your bachelor degree, graduates, and once you get a job, don't make a gap. Still, or keep learning. And I didn't recognize his advice at the beginning because I joined my first job in 2016, immediately maybe 9 months after I graduated. I just got involved into the job and into my task as a fresh graduate, so I had to learn everything. This made a gap between when I graduated And when I realized that, in some point, I realized that I need to keep learning. But I felt that I'm disengaged or disencouraged. I cannot go back to being a student. So I tried my best. I continued my learning. And if you want to consider, there is a one certificate that you should think of after you graduate if you want to increase your chances of getting the job. There's a professional certificate called CIPR from Chartered Institute for Public Relations. It's very valuable because organizations now, especially private organizations, are not looking into if you are more into having uh, a master degree rather than a professional certificates in your field. Because there, I will give you one example, one last example. There is one team handling a task in accountant in Oman till, and imagine that the talent pool in Oman, which having that certificate, only 3 people. So you could just imagine the chances they have to move from organization to organization, because people now or organizations now and management focusing on professional certificate rather than the master degree. It's important, but in private sector, just try to focus more in getting a professional certificate in your field. Sorry, I took too much from your time, and I will just leave the mic to you, Mr. Sami, if you have any question or any comments.
Thank you so much, Mr. Marwan, for this again very engaging and fruitful session on internet communication. We really appreciate your knowledge, your kind of accumulated knowledge over the last, again, I think more than 10 years in the private sector. I think you are more into telecommunications industry. You worked for Amantil and now you are working for Vodafone. So again, it's good to get some first-hand experience from you guys. I do really appreciate your time. You know that you have a very hectic and busy schedule. But again, really appreciate your effort in putting this stuff together and also sharing your knowledge and experiences with our students. I hope that our students have learned and you know have at least at least they now got some kind of you know a glance into the future waiting for them once they graduate. Okay, let me just again I'll share my slides again. So okay, so Mr. Marwan, I think his session was very comprehensive, covering a lot of areas in internet communication. If you allow me to just summarize the key elements that Marwan covered today, starting with, of course, the I think the internal communication. Let me see. Okay. Yes, I think Marwan started by stressing that we have 3 key pillars that, again, you cannot be ignored by any company or organization. These are the internal communication, employment engagement, and culture. So they should be aligned again. And then Marwan moved on to talk about internal communication. So basically, he also walked us through the paradigm shift that we witnessed not only in communication but also in public relation, moving from one-way communication or public relation to two-way, more open dialogue and communication between the company and its publics, both internal and external. Then we moved on to the purpose of internal communication, why we need internal communication. This is a very important question to answer. And in short, internal communication is there to inform, engage, align, and motivate, as well as support management change that we have in our organization. Very important to have this kind of two-way communication or an open dialogue with your internal communication or internal publics, be it employees, top management or senior management, etc. So they should be kept informed and educated about their organization, what is going on with the organization, both internally and externally. Why internal communication matters? Because it helps you to increase or improve productivity, trust level, retention, which means basically keeping your highly educated and qualified people in your company. And then we have internal communication and employment engagement. Again, Marwan stressed the importance of having that kind of feedback loop between the management and the employees, of course. Again, the importance why we need to recognize and acknowledge the achievements of our staff or employees, and why we need to, to make sure that all voices are heard from the company. And that's, of course, is one of the conditions for having a very healthy workplace environment. Shaping organizational culture, Marwan again stressed that all activities should work hand in hand, and they should be aligned with the culture or the organizational culture that we have. Okay. Right. Okay. The final part of the session, Marwan also Jazakallah khair, gave us a number of kind of tips on how you can improve the kind of skills that you need if you are inshallah planning to work as an internal communication practitioner or specialist, inshallah, once you graduate. And one of the opportunity that you have is to seek professional certifications from highly reputed BR institutions like the Chartered Institute of Public Relations. I did actually share the link on the chat, so you can use that link. There are a number of training sections, certifications that you can get from this highly reputed institution. Of course, this will be a plus for your CV. Okay. Right. So, Marwan, I don't have any specific question from my side. I will open the floor for students and the audience. If they have any questions, please feel free to ask. Any questions from the audience?
No,
Yes,
sir, thank you.
Okay, we have Hamad, Jinan, Mariam, Hamid, and Khalid. Any questions you would like to ask?
I wish that it's approved.
Sir,
Everything was clear.
It was very, very clear. Yes, Hamid. Maybe Hamid has a
Uh,
question.
is my voice clear now?
Yes.
Okay. I want to ask you first. I think I will to thank Mr. Marwan and Mr. Ayman for this presentation. It's increased my knowledge about PR. So what I want to ask, what in your career, what you give us a small example of building a brand or building a reputation for organization.
Okay, there is a worth mentioning story back in my days in Oman when I explained about the private Instagram page for our employees. Some employees we managed and we succeed to make them as our ambassadors outside in the society. So shared the news that we are having this, we are communicating. For example, our internal communication team is using this platform to communicate this. We can see this. We know this. So the news spread over the society and got into someone from Ministry of Labor, and they had a program for government entities to improve their internal communication. So they submitted a request to our team, to internal communication team, that we need to gain experiences about how do we implement a successful channel like yours. They are meaning the Instagram page. So we hosted a 25 government entities in one hall. We explained to them all the policy, the strategy of implementation, how do you implement it, how it works, what you should communicate, when you should use it. So that was a proven example that how your employees could be your ambassador and could contribute to your success inside your organization and outside.
Thank you so much, Mr. Marwan, for sharing his example. I hope that Hamid got the answer. It was very clear. Again, these sessions are recorded, so you can refer to these sessions later on, and you can watch the recorded session again and again, just to make sure that you got everything mentioned during these two sessions. Again, I would like to thank Marwan for your time, and inshallah, this won't be the last sessions that we have on BR related topics. بإذن الله تعالى, next semester we'll try to have more than 4. We have already conducted 3 sessions in this series, and I think we will have another session on event management. Okay, this session maybe will be delivered by Mr. Hilal Labri. He's working for Space Makers company. So we will again keep you posted regarding the session number 4. And again, if you are interested, you can join our session.
Thank you, Mr. Sami. Inshallah, future, we wished this time we could just meet physically, but due to work commitments and the distance between us, so we couldn't make it. But hopefully, inshallah, in the future, we could meet them physically. It's much different than online. But this is the circumstances, inshallah, but hopefully in the future. Thank you for having me, Mr. Sami, and sorry for taking too much time from your busy schedule. Wish, inshallah, to see all the students in a good places in the future, inshallah.
Inshallah. Thank you so much, Marwan, and inshallah we'll catch you, inshallah, soon.
Thank you.
We'll see you soon, inshallah.
Thank you, Mr. Sami. Okay, bye.
Thank you. Okay, guys, thank you so much for your time and for attending these 2 sessions. As I mentioned, these sessions are recorded, so you can, go back again and watch these sessions if you are interested in corporate communication, internal communication.